paranormal, UFOs, monsters, mysteries. You're listening to Talking Weird. And now, from a cabin deep in the Northwoods, your hosts, Dr. Dean Bertram and Jen Durrell.
Hey.
Well, hello, all my weirdos and weirdettes. This is like the worst astronaut helmet I've ever seen, and I'm going to take it off so I can actually
It's great. I love it.
Introduce the show properly. I couldn't resist wearing it, though, so everybody could see just how ludicrous it was.
Tell them what your outfit is, though.
Anyway, happy Halloween, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our annual Halloween bash on Talking Weird. This is our first year we've been on the Untold radio network for Halloween.
Yeah.
So that is super duper exciting. Mm-hmm. I love your costume, by the way.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
So I was meant to be Project Serpo. And it's kind of a long story. For those who know, Project Serpo was the exchange program the US government supposedly had with the ETs and set a dozen of our guys up and I think maybe they kept some grays down here or something, supposedly. But I found out, this is how I found I got my credit card stolen a couple of weeks ago. I'd ordered this sticker cum patch thing to stick on here to say Operation Serpo. Did it a couple of times, kept not working. And I'm like, there's plenty of money in that account. Why didn't it work? And then I logged into my bank account to find out, and it wasn't because of the place I was ordering from, but some bogus Facebook account had hit my account like multiple times, $50 a time, like just, I don't know, 20, 30 times in one day. Just So in a way, Project Serpo let me find out my money was being stolen quicker than I might have otherwise. So there you go. Wow. But yeah, so I am meant to be a member of the Project Serpo away team, hence the astronaut garb. And yeah, the people who went up. And what are you meant to be? I think it's pretty obvious, baby.
Well, I'm just an elf, basically. Maybe, what do you call it, an elf queen, princess? I don't know.
You're a fairy queen or an elf queen, yes.
Something like that, yeah.
I wish you would abduct me away to fairyland. I could handle that.
Abduct you to fairyland?
Yeah. Remember that Tanya Donnelly song? I always thought it was about fairy abduction. I'm keeping you. People should listen to that. Tanya Donnelly.
Oh, yes. You sent that to me.
I always thought it, because she has a song called Bright Lights, which is clearly about alien abduction, both the lyrics and the film clip. Mm-hmm. And I'm keeping you, whatever it was called. It seemed like it was a song about one of the other crowd kidnapping a mortal person to the land of the Fae or the She or whatever we want to call them. Anyway, that's probably enough of my Fae jibber jabber. In fact, we're going. But no, because you had an experience with perhaps a member of the other crowd this week.
Perhaps I did end up putting it on Facebook on my own page, just asking friends if they've had weird experiences just like me. So I ended up seeing something. I don't know if you could say your mind's eye, psychic, third eye, something like that. But sometimes that happens to me from time to time, but it was a little weird because I was going to bed. I was completely awake. And as I was putting my pillows off the bed and then getting into the bed, so there's the movement of the blankets. And so as that moves and comes back down, there's this little being at the end of my bed just looking up at me going, with this little mischievous grin. And he was kind of like a pale green and pointy nose and ears. And so he was kind of my inspiration for the elf and fairy ears tonight, because that was quite interesting seeing something like that. Hadn't seen that before. You are muted, Dean.
It's because my spacesuit's so crinkly sounding. have to mute. As I was just about to say, I wonder if all of our talk about the other crowd every week encouraged this thing to appear, because you're not meant to talk about them, of course.
Yeah, that's what they say. I don't know.
Something
Who knows?
noticed that you were talking about them, perhaps.
I don't know. I have no clue what happened, but it decided to reveal itself for a split second.
Well, maybe we can ask tonight's guests about it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so let's get that started. Of course, I prepared something. So, tonight's guests are known as the Australian Queens of Paranormal and the Ghost Grannies, Anne Rzechowicz, if I said it right, hopefully, and Renata Daniel. Anne is the owner of Australia's largest online paranormal equipment store, Oz Paratech, and she has been investigating the paranormal for over 10 years. Renata is the owner of the multi-award-winning Newcastle Ghost Tours, which includes investigations, workshops, special events. She is also a professional tarot card reader and psychic medium. Together, Anne and Renata run Frightfully Good, which is a paranormal spiritual community. They host ghost tours, workshops, and spooky weekends throughout Australia, as well as hosting the Seance Parlor, where guests can receive validating messages from their loved ones. They also host a weekly radio show called Spooky Sundays, as well as 2 other podcasts called True Hauntings and Diary of a Ghost Hunter. So I am super excited to welcome Anne and Renata to the show.
Hello, everyone. How are you all?
Greetings.
Yeah.
Happy Halloween to you as well. It's wonderful to have you here.
Yeah.
Oh, it's awesome to be here. Thank you for inviting us.
And I'd like to say the gremlins are in the system this evening. I had to actually go out of Linux that my husband likes me to use on the computer and go into Windows to make it work.
That's because you said the F word.
I did. The F word, which stands for fairy. Oh,
Yes, yeah.
Said it again.
Yeah.
Oh.
Mhm.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. It happens. It's funny. It's happened to us during. We
Yeah,
were.
during the show.
I can't remember. Were we on somebody's show? No, they were on ours, and we were talking about the fair folk, and we had all kinds of tech problems.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
crazy.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep.
when we went to Ireland, we actually went and found a little gift or a symbol of the Fae folk, and we now have it on the shelf behind us, and it seems to help.
On occasion.
On occasions. Maybe I need to go rub the bottle or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Did you go and see some forts while you were in Ireland, or?
Fairy forts, no, we didn't get there. We did see other places. When we travel, we are on such a very strict itinerary and time schedule that we are probably driving past some very super places, but we just cannot stop. So we're hoping that allows us to come back the next time and do those.
Oh, yeah. I'd love to go to Ireland. Mhm.
Ireland is beautiful. It is beautiful. It really is. I wonder whether any of our listeners have been to Ireland or come from Ireland. One of the places that we went to on our last tour or our last trip there was Newgrange.
Oh, yes.
So we actually got to go in to Newgrange, which was awesome. We've been waiting to do that for a few years.
Yeah, we kept getting knocked back because it was always shut or sold out or some sort of issue. So we finally got through.
Isn't there something called like the Hellfire Caves? Is that Ireland or is that somewhere else?
There are some in Ireland and England.
Well, there's a Hellfire Club in Ireland. That's near
Okay.
Dublin. And that's on top of Mount Pellier Hill, and that is an old hunting lodge that was then taken over by the Hellfire Club, and they used to have all sorts of fun things that I won't go too much into on this family program.
Have to get us back after hours.
But there is the Hellfire Caves, which are in England, which we did go to on our last trip as well, and I think that could be even more sordid than the other one in Dublin. So
do you think that's possible?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
People in medieval England and then the 1800s had so much more time than we do. They had to fill their hours.
Well, the lords and the ladies
They
might
had
have. I
to
don't think
fill
the
their
bronze
hours
serfs
by
did.
doing intellectual work, expanding their minds, all that sort of stuff.
I love your costume, by the way, Anne, as well. Thank you for getting
Yes, I
up
know.
in
I
that
made an effort.
Ghostbuster garb.
I'm a victim. Can you not see?
Just a victim.
I am a victim.
Renata is rather traumatized.
I'm
We had an all-nighter investigation on Friday night that went from 11 p.m. till 6 a.m. and it's
Oh,
one of
wow.
our Halloween celebrations. And Renata was helping a lady who needed some assistance and needed to use the disabled lift that we have there to go to one of the top levels. So this lady had been a little bit
needy.
no, I was going to say that. I was going to say unrealistic of her expectations of a ghost tour. She was
Yeah.
complaining that she had not yet seen a ghost or heard a ghost and was wanting her money back. And so we sort of had to firmly explain that that's not what this experience is about, guaranteeing ghosts, because nobody can do that.
Right.
And then she was cranky with us and wanted a all-night investigation just with either Renata or myself. And I said, well, that's not going to happen because we've got 30 other people who
Yeah.
also need assistance and help tonight. So after we sort of firmly put her in a place, Renata took her up to the chapel area where we're going to be doing some more ghost hunting work. And as they got into the lift froze. It broke down part way up. So we had to call a technician at 3 a.m. in the morning and rescue them. It took 40 minutes to get them out of the lift. And Renata is now damaged for life, I would say.
I have PTSD.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that would be really scary. So just to kind of get us started just a little bit, just so that people know a little bit about you guys, just in case they don't know, since majority of our viewers are probably, from the United States and they don't know that much about you fabulous ladies in Australia. Can you tell us just a little bit about yourselves? Just a little
Don't you
bit.
love how we just took off? We just
just
took off
take
with the
over.
conversation and didn't even bother to introduce ourselves. All right, go for it, Renata.
Well, hi everyone. It is awesome to meet you all. My name is Renata Daniel. I have been doing all of this sort of stuff and been interested in everything that is spooky, crazy, and wild ever since I can remember. And I actually really got into it in my early 20s when I started doing tarot and learning how to read tarot cards. That's been probably a 40-year progression. So do the math. And
She's old.
I still read tarot. I still do that professionally. I do a bit of psychic work as well, do some mediumship work as well. But I really got into ghost hunting about 12, 13 years ago when it just became an addition to the other work that I was doing here in Newcastle. And I started Newcastle Ghost Tours. And Australia is, or was back then, it's a little bit better now, very, very difficult to open up to the whole concept of ghost tours. We live in quite a conservative area of Australia, and so it took quite a bit of time to convince people that we weren't going to destroy properties or do something that was really...
Or dance on graves with slaughtered chickens.
Yeah. Or anything really, really, really bad.
You've got to pay extra for those tours.
Yeah.
And so, yes, only a few. And so it kind of evolved over a number of years where we progressively did more and more tours. We did education, we did events and all that sort of stuff. I got together with this one about 6 years ago, and we then sort of created other tours within tours and expanded. And as you mentioned in the introduction, we now do a radio show, we do podcasts, we do lots of YouTube videos for our misadventures that we do when we go traveling. We try and get overseas once a year. Of course, COVID stopped that. We'd like to do it at least 2 or 3 times a year, but we'll get there. And also show people those adventures, because we understand that many people can't get overseas because of costs, but they can at least watch what we do and enjoy it through that. We build a community. It's all about community and trying to educate people here in the diversity of the paranormal and the realities of it.
Wow, that was epic.
Good.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm Anne. Hi.
You guys have you done a tour to America yet, you guys? I'm not actually sure if you've been over here.
Next year.
I've been.
Next year, 2023.
I've been,
Excellent.
and I'm determined to get Renata over there. We were going to speak at the Women's Paranormal Conference in West Virginia at the very start of COVID. We were meant to fly out in May, and then, of course, COVID shut everything down at the start of May for us, so we just missed out. But we will be speaking at that conference finally 3 years later. And so we're coming over early June to speak at that conference. But basically, a little bit about me. I'm a paranormal investigator. I'm not so much into the psychic medium stuff, although it turns out that when I read the oracle cards on our tarot show, I tell people I make stuff up, but it seems to be hitting the nail on the head a few times. So I'm now sort of going, I don't really want to own that, but that's where I'm at.
That's cool.
And you had a background as an actress, is that right, Anne, as well? Is that your...
Yes. I'm well known for the TV series Deadly Women. I've murdered people several times on that show. Got to the stage that they didn't even need to audition me. They just go, look at that face. That face is a murderer. They're in the role. So I've been on about 4 or 5 seasons of Deadly Women, and I think one of my best known ones was Susan Eubanks, which is spelled Eubanks, and I think I won the Deadliest Woman of the season for that one. So,
Oh wow, yeah. Well, Dean, you're kind of were in that field in Australia a little bit.
Oh yeah, I ran some film. I mean, I have an academic background. I'm a historian academically, but I spent some time founding and running film festivals in Australia. So, and I was involved in some film production as well. So it's always nice to have somebody on the show, or 2 of you on the show from my neck of the woods. More to the point, I was from Sydney, but I've been to Newcastle many times. So lovely part of the world.
Yep. It is. It's got beautiful beaches. It's one of those places where you've got just about everything you could possibly want within an hour's drive. So you can get to the vineyards for the wine, you can get to the beaches, you can get to snow up in the Barringtons. It's a pretty special place. Apart from the bogans that live there, it's really nice.
There are bogans everywhere in Australia. And I missed before because I had a little gremlin of my own running around here. My daughter, who's normally very good, but tonight, maybe it's the Halloween spirit, I think, had got her all riled up. But is Newcastle a particularly haunted place? I might have missed it if you said that it was. Are there a lot of... Okay.
Well, Newcastle is the second oldest settlement on the mainland of Australia. And it started as a convict settlement. So when England decided it wanted to put a foothold in this part of Australia, of course, the first settlement was Sydney, which is now about a 2-hour drive north. Or south,
the other north
from
Renata.
Newcastle. South from Newcastle is going the wrong way. And so when we had a whole stack of convicts that had landed in Australia and they had committed crimes either coming on board on the ship or once they landed in Australia, there was a need really for punishment and for somewhere for those recalcitrant beings to go. And so they created an open-air jail, which became Newcastle. And so that settlement started right at the mouth of the Hunter River, which comes in from the ocean or meets the ocean. And they created a safe harbour. They started to settle there. And then from there, really, because we're surrounded by rich alluvial soils and it's fantastic for growing and for raising cattle and all of that, people with a lot of money started to come from Sydney up to this particular area to find their fortunes. So that's kind of how it all began. So we have many sites that go back to the very late 1700s, where the first settlement started, and then a lot of historic homes in that early 1800 and mid 1800 period that are still available through the National Trust, who are often bequeath these homes from family members, and they are open to the public as museums.
So yes, it is haunted.
Yeah.
She has the long words, and I just
Sorry.
I'll translate.
I should know, being an Australian myself, but were there many Irish convicts who went to Newcastle? I'm wondering if they brought perhaps the fair folk or beliefs of the fair folk with them to that part of the world.
Yeah, they did.
Definitely the superstitions came with them.
Yeah.
We have a small museum here in Newcastle, and there's one exhibit where they have shoes that have been dug out of people's walls or under the step that goes into the house as good luck charms and charms.
Protection against evil and
protection against evil.
Yeah, so that, I mean, you would find little hints of the superstitions within their houses, but it was all very much hushed up. You weren't allowed to have any sort of pagan interest, were you?
No.
You'd know. You were alive back then.
Yeah.
We had Emma Tully on, and she had told us that she's from Ireland, and she had mentioned that they would take a dead horse's head and put it in the floorboards, I think, of a home, and that was considered protection from the fae.
That's quite epic.
Yeah, it's pretty
and smelly.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
I hadn't heard that one before, so I was a little
No.
I'm covering the ABC of superstitions at the moment on our radio show, Spooky Sundays, which is also a podcast. Hint, hint.
Yes.
And there has been some really weird ones. I'm only up to, like, I think D, and we've done cats and dogs, and the cures that they came up with for various items of animals and things is quite disturbing. Quite.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's some of those things that you heard?
Oh, yeah. Can you remember any of them? I know there was one of them. Oh, if you had a sty in your eye, you had to get a cat's tail and wipe it downwards 3 times to remove the sty from the eye.
Too bad you had a cat allergy. You had a cat allergy, your eye would really blow out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do think, though, that we have a lot more allergies nowadays than they would have had back then.
Well, they didn't live long enough
They
to know if they had them.
they probably all died by the time they were
Yeah,
born.
that's true.
You know, it's interesting talking about such superstitions, though. I also do another show on the Untold Radio Network where we are tonight called Mysterious Library on a Tuesday. And the last book we did was a book called The Book of Halloween by an American historian and librarian. And she wrote it in the early 19th century, like I think was published in 1919, if I recall. Ruth Edna Kelly is the author's name. But Halloween then in the United States, obviously World War II, still had an incredible amount of old-time superstitions, like the old fortune telling, which was part of the holiday always in the Gaelic countries, like in Ireland and Scotland. People in America were still doing a lot of these fortune-telling rituals. The type of things where a young woman would look in a mirror and brush her hair at midnight or something and see the face of her husband to be over her shoulder, or you'd peel an apple and throw the skin, and the shape it would be, and if it was a letter, would tell you the initials of your future wife or husband. Or you would put nuts on a fireplace, 3 nuts representing you and your 2 possible lovers, right? And if one of the nuts jumped away from you, that nut, you knew, well, that's not going to be my future husband or my future wife. So it was strange to read today, because Halloween now is really essentially, especially in America, is just become, an excuse to watch horror movie marathons, or to get drunk at a college party or an adult party, or to trick or treat if you're a kid. I mean, those superstitious elements, or those more folkloric elements or fortune telling elements, seem to be seem to be stripped away. What do you ladies think about the older, more important elements, the more traditional elements of the holiday of Halloween?
Well, I think it's actually part of the pagan religion, and for people who are practicing those particular area, it I don't know. I think I would be rather pissed, as a horrible way to say it, but at the way it's being butchered and it's not being recognised for what it was really all about, is it?
Mm. We've changed as a culture, and Halloween is always about the fear of what we don't understand and
Yeah.
don't know, and to celebrate and respect the dead, because there has always been this sense that the dead can come back and hurt us. And so we spend one day in the year to kind of go, okay, if you're a relative, it's okay for you to come back. But if it's not, I want to do something that allows you to be at peace. That's why they did souling, where they would give children cakes and biscuits to sing to the dead and get them to, find some peace in the afterlife and literally not come back and attack us all like zombies. But it's also this thing of allowing people to show that there is a darker side of yourself. And Halloween nowadays, I think, although people don't go that deeply into the psyche of what Halloween allows you to do, it allows you to explore that darkness and to go, I'm going to be really weird today. I'm going to dress up like a zombie, a creature, and I'm going to scare the living daylights out of everyone. I had to choose my words, because that is part of who we are too. But we live in such a structured culture that we're not allowed to show that side. It's not allowed to come out of the box. So we're not allowed to swear. We're not allowed to do all of these things. There is now a list even of the costumes you aren't allowed to wear at Halloween because it's going to be offensive. Yeah, I saw that today. 10 costumes you cannot wear at Halloween because it will offend someone.
Wow.
So we're becoming more and more rigid. And the more and more rigid we become, the more days like Halloween are going to explode, because this is like a free-for-all day, and people can just go nuts, and adults can go crazy. We can wear makeup.
We suspend the rules.
We suspend the rules for just a point in time, and it allows us to deal with that. It brings it out. People can see it. And again, it can either be hidden with alcohol and chocolates, or we can really think about that part of ourselves and do some deeper work.
Yeah.
You're very deep today, Renata.
I am.
Correct amount of coffee or
I've had
something.
coffee. I'm fine. I've had sleep.
It's very true though. Even historically, Halloween was much like other carnival traditions in Europe, where the whole kind of class system or social system was allowed to go nuts for a night. Like you could do things which would normally perhaps get you in trouble, or if you were poor, you had more license than you might have had during the rest of the time of the year. And I think perhaps we still kind of live that out on days like Halloween, but I think some people have forgotten the meanings. For example, here there's often very structured trick-or-treat hours now. And supposedly trick-or-treating became popular, I think, in the post-World War II years here, because there was a period in American history where, and you can tell when you read that old book I mentioned, where there was a lot of genuine trick playing. Like people would, take doors off barns and put them on, and put them on the roof of the barn, or they'd do all kinds of property damage. They do all kinds of crazy stuff. And so communities realize, if we give kids candy, they'll just want to come around and get candy, and then they might
go into a sugar coma and everything will be fine.
Yeah, they might go crazy. And also then, of course, the corporations realize, well, there's a buck to be made here. So it became commercialized. And I think a lot of that. But speaking of the old meanings, all the psychological importance of it aside, which you very aptly just pointed out then, Renata, is do you guys, being people who are in tune with, I suppose, the other world more than most, like I know, and I believe you're sensitive, Is Renata a sensitive as well, or a medium
She's
as
a
well?
psychic medium.
I'm very,
She's the
I'm very
talented one.
sensitive,
Okay.
Dean.
Okay.
Very sensitive.
Do you find at this time of the year in Australia the veil's down? I know it's a tradition which comes from the Northern Hemisphere, and so I'm not sure how it applies. I always celebrated Halloween in Australia, but I'm not sensitive or anything like that, so I was never conscious. But do you find it's a time of year in Australia where there are more, where things are more present, or would it be 6 months later? Would it be more in the Australian fall or winter? I'm just curious if there's a difference.
It's really again, we have so many different, no one can tell you how to believe in all of this stuff. That's one of the big points. So no one can tell you to do Halloween in October or do it, 6 months later when it is seasonally correct for us. The thing, I guess, is that because we are in this, and literally we are in this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, this is our livelihood, our job,
Our obsession.
this is the air we breathe. We have this continually in our life. So we really don't find that this time of the year is more epic than any other time of the year. Because it is mentioned more, and because there is a sense of time that Halloween is coming around, for those that believe in this, yes, that energy hypes up for them, and they do believe that there is a greater closeness to the other side. But I think, speaking for myself, we live Halloween every day of the year. That's just, if you came into my house, you would think it's Halloween, because we have skulls and things all over the place. So,
And I think also, as people who are, it's supposed to be when the veil is thinning and all that sort of stuff. I don't feel anything in regards to that, but other people might feel that there is more going on. But I think that's only because they're aware that is the possibility. So they're looking for those things, and therefore those things might always be there, but all of a sudden they've noticed it because it's that time of the year. So I don't think it's any more active. It's just, the whole looking for it.
It's not the sense that the whole culture or the whole country was in that zone of thinking. And I think with white cultured countries, it is very, very different than if you went somewhere where the whole town, the whole country was in Halloween mode.
Are you talking European?
Yeah, European, or a lot of Indian cultures and
really?
Asian cultures also have big days where
it's
they
not
celebrate.
Halloween, it's
their
the Hungry Ghost
version of
Festival
Halloween,
and that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
Day of the. No, you go, Jen.
I think we were getting ready to say the same thing. The Day of the Dead. That's a big popular one too. Yeah.
And then, of course, we have Christianity then has also adopted, because they knew how important it was in the pagan culture. So they've got their All Souls Day.
Yeah.
November 1st. How intriguing.
Yeah, and I think what happened historically was a lot of Catholic countries adopted All Saints and All Souls in ways that became more like Day of the Dead, where you went and sat on the graves of, past relatives, and you set another plate at the table, perhaps for somebody who died in the last year or a dead relative you were missing. And the candle in the window, or the equivalent of the jack-o'-lantern in the window, might be something to welcome the dead in, or to show them the way on their road, while in the countries which came from more Gaelic traditions, notably those in the British Isles, you didn't want the dead to come in. You actually, most of those fires and the like were to keep the dead away. You often, if you were in Ireland, for example, on November Eve, you didn't go out at night. That was the night when the fair folk were traveling between their forts. That was the same as the other side of the year, May 1st. That was when they were moving from their from their winter to their summer residences. And on Halloween or Samhain or November Eve, whatever we want to call it, they were then moving from one fort, which was their summer residence, to their winter residence on that night. So you didn't want to go out, because that's when they were around. So different cultures in Europe handled that date very differently, I think, which is fascinating to me.
Hence the reason they'd wear masks and things to cover their face so they couldn't be recognized.
Exactly.
Yeah.
exactly, to blend in with them, perhaps with
Yeah.
the other crowd, the spooks and the sprites. Speaking of spooks and sprites, it is Halloween. I'm
Yes.
sure Jen was going to ask you. I know she wanted to hear about some of your spookier tales. Is that right, Jen?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, it would be interesting to hear since Renata's from Newcastle. What would be the most spookiest or scariest experience you've had giving ghost tours or
I'm going to go grab a
anything
glass of
like
water.
that?
You tell them your story.
Yeah, dealing with the people that come's really spooky. Because everyone has such a different view of what is going to happen and what their expectations are, and their fear levels are anywhere from 0 to 100. It's always quite interesting to find out what goes on for them. And when we do our paranormal investigations, we do it very, very differently than what we would give to the general public. For the general public, we are trying to give them as much of an opportunity to have their own experience as possible by providing different types of experiments and talking them through things and why we use different types of equipment, all of that sort of stuff. When we are doing our own thing, we found when we were overseas, we had that massive, beautiful opportunity to just walk around and be in the environment and absorb it, and trying to listen and engage with whatever energy is still existent on that site. We don't use a lot of gadgets. We kind of just observe, listen, integrate ourselves, see what's coming through, all of that sort of stuff that, if you tried to show that on a TV show, they'd be bored in 5 minutes and we'd never get a season 2. But it's critical for a paranormal investigator to spend time exploring how they can make their connections.
Yes.
And to give it time to allow it to occur gently and quietly. So some of the greatest experiences that we've had, or I've had, have been when I'm sitting quietly, just literally going into a zone in that particular space. I remember I was going through England at one stage, and of course you're driving through England, and around every corner there's a castle or a ruin of a castle. So you go, oh my God, let's stop there, and you sort of go, okay, well, we'll stop. And I was with a travel buddy at that point in time, and she went off doing her own thing. And I just sat on a bench and I was just looking at this whole scenario and just kind of wondering what it would have looked like when the castle was in its greatest moments.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, right at the very back of that whole scene, I see someone walking past, and they were walking past in this long tunic. And the thing is, it would not have lasted for more than 3 seconds, maybe. But I kind of went, you're at a castle. It's a public, thing. Maybe there is someone dress up there, reenactment or whatever. I went and asked, and the lady actually said, where was it? Where did you see this? Blah, blah, blah. And it turned out that other people had seen it in that same place. So those moments where you sort of see something, we've been in homes, for example, that people have, real estate agents have asked us to go into to examine because they haven't been able to sell the house. And so we've gone in.
And interestingly, this one particular house, I had been called to a few years earlier, and then we were called back as a different group. They didn't realize it was the same group. But that was interesting.
Yeah, and we ended up finding out that there were 2 opposing people living in that home who kind of really didn't want, number one, the house to sell, but couldn't also kind of get in touch with each other, as in who was head honcho there, who was in charge, whose territory was whose. So we had to have a really long conversation with these 2 energies to kind of say to them, this is actually for your well-being, because if the house isn't sold, it will be pulled down. You won't have anywhere to live. And can we all make amends and, make this work? So having conversations to what can sometimes feel like thin air
You feel like an absolute nutter.
Is quite interesting. But when the next day, or how many days
it was the next day.
The next day, the real estate agent calls and says, someone's just been through the house and they want it. They've bought it. Is where you go, well, we must have done something.
Yeah, we'll take credit for that.
We'll do that.
Don't know if it was us or not, but it sounds good.
Yeah, but going back to the original question, the most active places are not the public ones. They're the private ones, the private homes, where people have a deep connection with the spirits that they are, working with or living beside, because they're there 24 hours a day.
And we've been to some of the biggest named places
around the
world now. So like Chillingham Castle and the Ancient Ram Inn and Leopard Castle and I can't remember. Well, there's been a lot, but every time we've gone into them, it's there's been so many people there. Oh, the Pontefract House.
Pontefract, yeah.
So many people there who have a vested interest in tourism, or there is a whole heap of people who are hyped up and expecting things that you don't really get the opportunity to sit
and really suss out what's going on,
see what's happening. Like we even went to the Jamaica Inn, and that was really quiet as well. But does that mean it's not haunted? No, it just means that when we were there at that particular moment at time, we didn't experience anything, and we're not terribly fearful either, are we?
No.
And I think that we're more curious and would rather sit down and have a conversation with thin air than run around going, "Oh, it's a demon."
Yes. Fear and expectation are game changers when you go in to do investigating. They will lead what you see and what you feel. When you just come in from that point of, I'm going to remain skeptical, which means I'm going to listen and interact, but try and work out what is actually going on. Things are very gentle and quiet, so they can happen, absolutely, but they're not this in-your-face thing.
And having now done the True Hauntings podcast, and what we do there is we take some of those big cases and we research what we can find on the haunting. We look into the characters involved and the phenomena involved and alternate explanations, and we try to work out if it really is a haunting or whether it's a furphy. And probably 99% of the time, it's very disappointing. I'm getting very disheartened.
Yeah.
The amount of cases that a haunting has been built on the word of a psychic or a medium that has come into the house and said there is a devil or a demon or a man, there is an evil entity, and it's this one person who has not actually been tested or proved. They're just self-proclaimed, and they come in there and declare it, and everyone goes, "Oh, it must be real." And all of a sudden, you've got this massive haunting.
Yeah. It's like they manifested it just by
absolutely.
And movie deals and books and sorry, I won't go there.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. I've noticed with places I've investigated before, and most of the times when I show up there, I don't even want to know the story. I want to figure it out on my own when I go there, because then it feels like when they fill my head full of that stuff, then it kind of ruins it for me, because then I don't really know what I'm experiencing. Is it something that's in my head? And then I'm like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, and you're looking for that rather than whatever may happen.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Renata, you said a minute ago, you mentioned what you saw that entity in a tunic for a few seconds, like an actual apparition. When you ladies do your investigations and you encounter something which isn't a furphy, do you think there are different things, or let's just assume the haunting is real. Do you think, for example, somebody in ancient clothing who walks the same path regularly could just be some type of memory? Like Jen often talks about, is it called stone tape theory? Is that right? Like
stone tape theory, residual memory.
Residual,
that kind of stuff.
And then do you think some other things are actually intelligent, conscious entities? And if you do, is there a way you can tell the difference between the two?
Well, we have to ask a lot of questions, and this is something that also annoys people. That when we do investigations, we start by questioning, and they go, "Well, why are you questioning? Why can't you just take out a gadget and go and take a look?
Why aren't you here with your K2 meter?
Or they'll send you a
Yeah.
question on the internet and say, "Something's going on. Tell me what it is." I don't know. I'm not there. I don't know the story. I don't know what's going on. I can't tell you. You want me to tell you it's a demon to make you happy, So you've got to ask a lot of questions. And and full-bodied apparitions are really rare. They are truly rare, where people can actually see them. And not sort of visualize them as a medium would. It's a completely different thing. So, for me, the first question was, is someone here dressed up? What's the history of the place? Has anyone else experienced this? And we've got to ask those questions first. But with residual energies, there's no feedback from them. You're just kind of standing there and watching this all unfold. And theoretically, the idea behind it is that the next person that sees it will probably see the same thing. The next person that sees it will probably see the same thing. They won't see too much of a difference, but you can't interact with them. So when we
look for intelligent responses.
Yeah, where we look for intelligent responses, and of course that's where Anne's gadgets come in, and also the sense that there is more of a storyline. They're trying to tell you something, or there is an extension to that moment of connection where they go, oh, you're here. I really want to tell you something. And this is what we kind of experienced during our seance sessions, because we've opened up that area for that communication to happen. But yes, occasionally when we go out to do investigations, we are also trying to get that intelligent stuff coming through.
Yeah. And quite often we use the Estes method a lot, which is listening to the spirit box with the headphones on. So the people asking questions won't influence the answers of the people who are calling out the words on the spirit box. And quite often we get help coming through. And I have this rule now, because you don't know whether that's an echo from the past or the interpretation of the person who's listening to it. I will say, tell me your name, always happy to help. And more often than not, we do not get the name. And the people on the tour are freaking out, going, "Oh my God, they want help. They need help." No, look, it could just be an echo. But we ask the intelligent question, or we need an intelligent response. If you give me your name, I will help you, but I need to know who you are. And sometimes we do, and then I'll say, "How can I help you?" And we've had response like prayer, or comfort or something like that. So I will say them a prayer. Whatever they ask for, I give them. I don't go, "Oh, well, this is what I think you need to do." I will offer whatever is asked if I can, as long as it doesn't involve slaughtering animals or Renata.
Never been asked.
So have you come across any malevolent spirits? Anything that
we've come across angry ones?
Yeah, they're pissed off.
Yeah, we've never come across anyone that has tried to hurt us in any way. And I mean, you may hear this whole "get out" and all of this, and so you go, "Oh, why?
Why?
Why do you want me? Why do you want the little old lady to leave? I want to have a chat to you. Can you just bear with me for a minute and open up? Open up. Let me know what's hurting you."
That's the counsellor in her.
Yeah.
She's a qualified counsellor, so she always wants to help. Dig deeper.
I always want to help. And so we have this conversation, and the thing we do is approach a lot with laughter. We're always telling jokes. We're always my latest thing is on investigations is I ask the spirits if they can give me $20. And that opens up a whole amount of conversation. "Can you give me $20? No. Oh, well, why not? I need it. I'm hungry. And so you start this conversation that is completely different to what is expected. Like, What's your name? How did you die? Why are you still here?
How old are you?
How old are you? Those old questions should have gone out in the 1950s. We need to explore deeper. We need to ask more pressing questions that will allow these beautiful energies to connect in some way that is meaningful for them. And laughter is medicine that crosses the veil. It really does. These spirits have a real funny bone. They love to joke.
It's good energy. They feed off energy.
Yeah. I've encountered some that always are wanting to. It says, "Do you want to play with me?" So at the same time, I'm thinking, "Oh, is this a trickster?" But I'll just go along with it and see what I get. But it's funny that you'd mentioned that, because I had one that was giving some very good feedback, and then all of a sudden they went straight to devil, and I'm like, "Okay, here we go." So I said, "So, do you like deviled eggs?"
Yeah.
And it turned around with no. So I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah. They could
just
be
played
testing
with
your
it.
boundaries.
Do you like
They
devil
could be
eggs?
testing how how strong you are in that moment to continue.
Yeah.
And so you have to, and we always say people, you have to remember that if you're going into this, remain in charge of the situation. Don't balk and don't go in.
Yeah.
Don't half go in and then go, I'm out of here. I can't deal with it anymore.
You should never go in with fear.
You have to stay to the end and wrap it up. Otherwise, you're just leaving this sense of there's more to be continued. And they'll try and chase you down and get the next thing. They want to be the end of the conversation.
Yeah.
There was a good question earlier from one of our regular viewers and listeners, David, and he asked, there is quite a bit of law concerning Indian burial grounds here in the US. Is that also true in Australia with the Aborigines, with the First Nation people there?
The First Nation people have their own set of beliefs, which are, of course, very, very old and ancient. I personally don't like to step on any form of connection or do work with what we might believe might be Indigenous spirits, because that's not our job to do, especially when Indigenous people are still here. If that whole race was wiped out, which heaven help, no, then, you have no other choice but to do something. Yeah. But if you have those people of that culture who are working and who are elders in the community, it's up to us. We've done enough bad stuff in this country. We don't need to create any more. I'll go and I'll try and find someone who can do that work and work with them. We have areas in Newcastle that are believed to be quite connected to the Indigenous people, especially Stockton area.
This is where I had my first experience at Stockton,
And so we try and work through the levels to see what this might be. It might be a spirit of place. It might be a spirit of the earth. It might be, someone who is more of our era, or it might be someone who is quite ancient and old. We've got to work all of that out first before we can decide what we're going to do.
There is one of the things that we do respect here in Australia. Hello, kitty cat.
Hello.
She kept peeking and I was like, uh-oh.
Oh, that's so cute. And that is that when an Indigenous person has passed over, we have to put a warning up on our television shows to say, please be aware we are going to show photos of the deceased Indigenous because it's very distressing for them to see those photos anywhere. So that is one of the things that we do need and we do respect here in the country.
Yeah, they don't talk about their dead. They want to leave them in peace. And so you don't look at their photos and you don't really speak about them.
That's interesting.
Joe, that's a good question. Australians connected with ancient Egyptians? Yeah, probably not. Nah.
Although we've got some people who are in our fan base that think they've got some maybe some past lives.
Here's something which is
Yeah.
popular in America that people talk about.
Oh, yeah.
And that is, do you think there, and this is from Dwayne, do you think that there is any connection pertaining to correlation between Sasquatch and ghosts?
Well, there are thoughts that they are interdimensional beings themselves, and the truth is we don't know what Sasquatch, or what do we call them, he-yowies, Bigfoot,
Hairy men.
hairy men. We don't know exactly who they are. We don't definitively have proof of them. We don't know what ghosts are. So all we can do is have a guess at what's going on. I mean, with ghosts, people saying that they're aliens, interdimensional beings, projections of our own mind, creations of our own mind.
Disconnected disconnected parts of our souls or ourselves, shards.
Yep. So I mean, it's all energy. So in that way, we're all sort of connected that way. But I really couldn't say. Sasquatch is not my area of. I couldn't even say expertise.
Yeah, we don't deal with anything that's out in the Australian bush.
Yeah. That's too much walking. There's too many spiders and snakes.
Horrendous. But we know people who have devoted their lives to doing that. They're very, very passionate about Australian cryptids and anything involved with sort of energies of the land. And they have stories to tell that will curl your toes. But I think that's one step too far for us. Yeah.
So what about the earth spirits, anything like that you read in folklore? Have you encountered anything like that?
There are areas that are very traditionally sacred in Newcastle, and we have tried to study those areas and learn the lore behind them.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that there are times when you can really feel that energy rising from that area. You can really kind of just stand there and go, this feels different. This feels really important, or this feels sacred, whatever word you want to use. And I don't like to disturb that energy. I like to let it be.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful if it shows itself to me, but I just don't really want to disturb it in any way and show respect to it. There are only a handful of stories that I have received from people who have had encounters.
Mm-hmm.
Again, how they show themselves is very, very different depending on who's having the encounter. I can't say personally I've had anything that would be sort of, or I could classify as that. What about you?
So we're sort of referring more to elementals and things like that. I think I have sensed a very ancient sort of sense of being when we've been in some of the forests and things in England and Ireland.
Yeah.
But not necessarily sort of any elemental spirits or anything like that. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was just a deep, profound respect of the area that was in because it was so old and so amazingly beautiful, or whether that was actually some sort of entity or energy attached to the land there. I'm not really sure.
What is there anything in Australia that paranormal researchers or investigators are doing different to what is, I suppose, the American mainstream that we're probably more used to here? Is there any trends in Australia at the moment?
We're not allowed to swear, are we?
I wish.
Look,
it's one of the reasons we go overseas is to see what other people are doing. We can get really stuck in a loop, and sort of you go to one investigation, then the other, and then the other, and then you kind of see that really we're all doing the same thing the same way. I get bored easily, personally. I'm always looking for something else to try and do. But you know, if something different is shown somewhere in Australia, you can guarantee that by the end of the week, everyone's doing it.
Yeah.
So we're kind of starved for information. It would be really great if we could collaborate with people from other parts of the world to see what they're doing so that we can try those things here. That would be awesome.
I would say that Australia is about 20 years behind in the field to America and England. We have been watching the ghost hunting TV shows on reruns for a while now, and we just emulate exactly what they're doing over there. It's really hard to get something new and fresh in.
Yeah. Yeah, I had watched an episode, and I can't remember the name of what show it was, but it was a little interesting because I have never seen anybody do it before. But they were in a home that had deaths at different times. So let's say one in 1790 and one in 1830. So they grabbed like an hourglass and a stopwatch. So a group of them went to the older side, and they went to the 1830 side, and they both said, well, at this time we're going to flip it over and then hit our time watch. And so they did that, and they came back together and found out that the one that was from 1790 was 20 seconds slower than the other one, which I thought was interesting. I've never thought about measuring time.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
And they're awesome. And the thing is that they're old school. A lot of it is old school stuff that's coming back. And people are so fed when they are watching these TV shows that if nothing has happened over 3 minutes in time, they'll switch off.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just really, really hard because you've got to give it time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm laughing at Dwayne's joke. Sorry.
I'll put it up on the screen for everybody to see. What does an Australian say when he sees a Sasquatch? Yowie, did you see that?
Yeah.
Pretty funny. Speaking of Australian, the Australian angle, we have a new show. It's kind of done a test on the Untold radio network, and they've done one episode, but I think they're coming back to go regularly, and that is Down South Anomalies with a very good friend of mine, Jay Katz, also known as Jamie Leonarda, and his wonderful wife Aspasia. So I should put you guys in touch with them because they've been very much involved in the broader paranormal UFO as well as the film scene in Sydney for decades. They're kind of a cultural mainstay in Sydney, but I bet you they'd love to have you on their new Southern Hemisphere centric show, which is about to launch as well.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Yes.
Love it.
Absolutely.
And speaking of shows, where can people reach out and watch all of your guys' fascinating stuff and see what you're up to? Well,
we have a couple of podcasts, True Hauntings podcast, which is now downloading 5,000 to 6,000 episodes a week, which we're super proud of. And this is its 2-year anniversary. Halloween it launched. We've also got Spooky Sundays radio show, which is also a podcast. Our new one, which is
Diary of a Ghost
Hunter, which is going to have second episode recorded today. We're on the TV series The Space Between with the Biassies, which was a fabulous show. We're also in Isaac Butterfield's Devil's Advocate YouTube series as the Ghost Grannies. We've done about 6 or 7 episodes of that, and there's more coming. We have our own YouTube channel, which is Anne and Renata, Frightfully Good, and also our community on Facebook, which is Anne and Renata, Frightfully Good Family.
Well, fantastic. I encourage everybody to check out your stuff. You guys are so down to earth and also hilarious all the time. Like your stuff's just so entertaining. But it was a great joy to talk to you both, and I hope you have a wonderful Halloween, as I hope all of our viewers and listeners to Talking Weird and all of the shows on the Untold radio network. And until we talk to everybody next, including you and Anne and Renata, and we will have to have you back.
Yes,
Keep
definitely.
Oh, please.
Oh, please.
We will keep it weird.
Stay
Halloween.
spooky.
Thank you. Bye.